Welcome to Marketing Demystified, the podcast that connects the dots for business leaders to drive revenue through effective marketing strategy. We chat with marketing experts on different topics that will help you ramp up your revenue. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Marketing Demystified, the podcast, is presented to you by GrowGetter, your partner in growth marketing. And here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered with practical tips to boost your marketing efforts? You are in the right place. Welcome to Marketing Demystified. I'm your host, Jenn Mancusi, CEO and co-founder of GrowGetter, your growth marketing partner. If you've been on LinkedIn lately, you've probably seen the headlines, things like SEO is dead, AEO is the new SEO, or GEO is the future. There are more acronyms flying around in this topic this year than maybe ever before in marketing, and it's leaving even seasoned marketers wondering what they should be doing differently. So today I'm joined by Ann Smarty, co-founder of Smarty Marketing, an SEO and AI visibility agency. Ann has been doing SEO for over 20 years. She's the former editor-in-chief of Search Engine Journal and spent over a decade as the community and brand manager at Internet Marketing Ninjas, an industry-leading SEO and content marketing agency. Today, Ann's breaking down what AEO or GEO or whatever the acronym is, what it actually means, where they overlap with traditional SEO, and how marketers should be approaching search now that AI overviews, ChatGPT and Perplexity are reshaping how people find information. So excited to have this chat. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I hope that I will be able to clarify all of that. We are still learning as well as an industry. I don't claim to have all the answers, but hopefully I can explain what we know at this point.
Yeah. Well, I feel like even before these days, SEO for some people was a little bit of a mystery, and the original kind of, just chuck a bunch of keywords into a blog article stopped working pretty quickly. And so now that it's gotten even more complicated, there's so much more to discuss. So yeah, even though it's not perfect, or maybe we don't know everything yet, maybe we never did, because the algorithms are always changing and things are evolving. So it's just so important to kind of stay on top of where things are now and then evolve with them as they grow.
There has been an evolution for sure. This is definitely difficult. It didn't start with ChatGPT. We've been going through changes for many years, more than 15 years at least, when the Google started becoming an answer engine itself. So it's not like it happened within a year or two. So I do have the experience to talk about all those changes, which is helpful, at least.
So helpful. So helpful. All right. Well, let's start with the basics. Can we demystify some of the acronyms around this topic? Everyone's talking about SEO versus AEO or GEO, and the alphabet is continuing to grow. Can you walk us through what these things really mean? What's answer engine optimization or generative engine optimization, and how are they actually different from traditional SEO?
Sure. Well, I mean, there are a lot of things are still changing. I will talk about my own perspective, which I have the right to have because it's been a while. First of all, let's talk about SEO because it's so widely misunderstood. SEO is not algorithm hacking or manipulating. It's search engine optimization. It's making your content or your website, basically, with the content on it, to be easily accessible, read, and retrieved by search engines and understood by search engines at this point. All the basics that you've heard about SEO, that you need a SEO-friendly website, that means that every machine or bot coming to your website can easily use it. Relevance is all about keywords. We still research keywords, and backlinks are still there as well. We need authority, and that comes with backlinks. So at that, the fundamentally, nothing has changed, and it's a long-term process of building relevance and authority trust to rank in Google. So that is SEO. Now let's get to a little bit newer stuff here. Let's start with answer engine optimization. Those acronyms, by the way, are still not as confirmed, not as official as we would like them to be. So I'll be talking about my perspective that is shared, but quite a few experts in the industry as well. So answer engine optimization, that is optimizing your website and your content for answers. We started talking about AEO, not so much as an acronym, but as answer engine optimization ever since Google's featured snippets. Those were introduced in 2014, so not at all a new concept. At that point, we were optimizing for featured snippets and for people also ask, understanding why Google would pick some URL to give a quick answer that is a featured snippet. So all of that has been around for a while. The newish one is GEO, generative engine optimization. This refers to optimizing your business at this point, not just your website, for those AI generated answers. And there are a lot of levels there. And it's not as straightforward as answer engine optimization, because for generative engine optimization, you need to be positioned as an entity, as a brand inside the training data. And here, let me move a little bit back to explain how those AI answers are created, because this is very important for understanding what GEO is. So when someone asks a question or puts in a prompt inside, let's say, ChatGPT, the first step that ChatGPT will make is to go to its knowledge data, to its knowledge base, training data, we call it. And that is fundamental, because they either know the answer or they do not. Either you are part of that answer inside the training data or you are not. And that determines if you are in the answer. In many cases, ChatGPT will not even go further that step. It confidently knows the answer already. Training data does not have any links or domains or URLs. That is important to remember, because it's not just about making your website known. It's about being in the training data as a brand. So let's say it doesn't think it knows the perfect answer. At that point, ChatGPT will search, just like people would do when they don't think they know the perfect answer. Mostly Google, but it is not confirmed. So it will search for queries that it thinks will give it the answer. It will search not for your prompt, but for something that it thinks will help it find the answer. At that point, you can be found if you rank in Google. You can be found during this process of searches, and you will become part of the answer as well. So there are two main levels in GEO. First is the training data. In many cases, the training data will determine what it will be searching. For example, you search for best shoes to go traveling, and it will search for long distance traveling shoes, comfortable shoes, all of that. But it already knows the brands and some publications that are likely going to give it the answers. So it will search depending on what it knows about the topic. So again, training data kind of plays a role here as well. So you can become part of the answer on the first step when you are part of the training data, or during the second step when ChatGPT is actually exploring the topic just like any human being would. So there are two levels of GEO, and I like to say that AEO is actually step 2, when they search and you are optimized to give the answers. So AEO, in my understanding, is kind of part of GEO, if that makes sense. I don't know how I explained it.
No, that makes perfect sense. And the steps that you described that the LLMs are going through to provide the answer, it makes a lot of sense. If anybody's out there and has been using ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, you can now see it's thinking and then it's searching, and you can kind of like watch it go through the process if you're not getting an instant answer. And we've been talking about how the foundational principles of SEO are still valid. SEO is not dead, in my opinion, although I do want to hear what your perspective on that is. But if it is step 2 in the kind of LLM process, then it certainly plays a role. And I think too, the becoming part of the answer. I think it's really interesting what you talked about in that training data, that it's not about getting people to your website necessarily. It's about being part of the data as a brand. And one of the things that has been popping up more and more frequently for us when we're, doing research on different brands and how they're showing up is that the training data isn't coming from their website. That's coming from maybe a description on a directory or some other place that is talking about the brand. And so while SEO is about optimizing your website for search, a lot of this GEO is about optimizing how other people are talking about you also. Are you seeing that too?
So to help a little bit to understand the whole concept, I know I talked a lot to business owners and people who really cannot even capture the fundamental idea here. Imagine that ChatGPT is you and someone asks you a question: what is the best restaurant in your area? And you, in most cases, if you go out enough, you already know the answer. You don't remember where you know it from. Maybe it's a recommendation from a friend. Maybe it's you just passed by and saw and checked it in and you loved it and remembered it. You don't necessarily remember where the answer is coming from, but you already can give that answer to your friend. ChatGPT is pretty much like that. It may remember you from visiting your website or from coming across you when researching your competitors when you are in the same directory or listicle, or maybe it may remember you from Reddit or other social media channel where somehow it consumed that content in the training data. It's very similar to how the mind works. But the second step there would be, as a good friend, you would be, okay, I have the answer, but let me hear your preferences, because my answer is based on what I know, but I don't know enough what you like. And the friend would be like, I like pizza, but I like it New York style. And then at this point, you don't have the answer anymore, and you Google, and that's how you give the answer. ChatGPT follows exactly the same steps. Sometimes it asks follow-up questions, like give me more data to be more helpful. Sometimes it just figures out that it doesn't know enough about the topic, so it will search. And at that point, you can be findable through actual SEO and rankings.
That is such a great analogy. I love that. Just you don't necessarily remember.
Almost daily, to be honest. So many
perfect.
people ask that question. That's why I have the fine-tuned answer at this point.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's very I get it, right? Like I don't necessarily know where I know the answer from. It's just in there. And if it's not, I need to figure out how to find it.
The nice thing is that in many cases, you know the answer because of good marketing. Because you saw an ad, because you were served some content through search engine and you remember, because you were on maps and that business is well positioned. So in many cases, you know the answer because of someone did a good marketing. And being in the training data is pretty much the same concept. You need to be very consistent with your marketing efforts depending on what you're doing, and you will be well positioned in the training data, even though you're not in the huge business like that pizza at the corner of my house, which I know because of a great banner or something like that. So it is still marketing in the first step as well, just not SEO. It's more traditional marketing, however you build your visibility.
I love that. If you're not doing marketing, you should be. There's so many other benefits. And this is brand marketing. This is about building awareness and building awareness amongst humans and building awareness amongst, your digital footprint so that you're showing up when you want to be showing up for in the LLM. So that's it's just a great analogy. And I want to talk about SEO a little bit more. I already shared or gave a little hint on my opinion here, but there's no shortage of people saying SEO is dead. And as somebody who's been doing SEO for 20 plus years, like I'd love to hear your honest take. Like, what does SEO in the age of AI look like in practice? And, has it changed? Is it dead? Or what's, how should people be thinking about it today?
So my honest take here is that as an SEO for many years, and my business is an SEO business, I would still love for it to have replacement, some more organic visibility channels except for Google. I would love that to happen. So far, I don't see that happening. First of all, what I'm seeing is that if you think about LLMs in terms of my analogy previously, you have some understanding and then you search. LLMs are the same. So if anything has changed, we just got a new type of audience that is also searching, behaves like people, makes decisions on behalf of those people. But they do the same steps. They still search. They search Google for the most part because Google so far has no replacement. And they find your website or find other mentions of you. Maybe they find you through listicles, just like any regular user journey. It's just the difference is that they do it much, much faster. Previously, a customer trying to find products would have spent a day. Now this whole thing happens within 5 seconds. So this is the difference. Yes, this is the difference. Yeah. But it's still still the same channel, only we have a new type of audience that are LLM or AI agents, as we call them. And those AI agents search, get to your website, figure out if they can understand it easily, and if they can, they suggest your business to the customer, to the end, to the actual human being. The future may be that they will buy right away, ship that to a human being. We are probably not there yet, but at this point, they do the same thing. So if anything has changed in SEO, fundamentally, is that we have a new audience that are not human. And we have to make things a little bit more clear for them. Humans are more, I would say, forgiving. If your website is a little broken, they will still give it a chance. If they cannot email, they may call you. So they will figure out the ways to still interact with you. LLM agents are like optimizing for a 3-year-old. Explain everything clearly, give them clear instructions what to do next, be very easy to understand. So this is pretty much what we're dealing with AEO at this point. Answer engine optimization is making your site very, very clear and yes, findable. This is the fundamental part. Being outside of your website has always been important. Whether you call it SEO or brand positioning or brand awareness, it has always been there. In most cases, it has been the part of SEO also. We want it to be mentioned next to our competitors for people to if they discover another page, they will still know about you. We want it to be on discussion forums. We wanted to curate reviews that talk about us in much detail. We wanted to be word of mouth, to have word of mouth marketing. That's why we had brand ambassadorship programs or something like that. So it has always been there. It's not new for GEO at this point. It's just whether you choose to call it SEO or not, or whether it's now GEO part. That part is still not that well defined. We are getting there. In my understanding, GEO is pretty much SEO findability plus product positioning. Product positioning hasn't always been part of SEO, at least that strong part, because you want to be known for exactly what you are doing to exactly people you are doing that for. And that is the key to being inside the training data. But to be findable by AI agents or for people is still as important, because they will still do additional research and they will find you, or they will choose not to include you if they failed to find you. So it is still an integral part of the process, just like it was.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little later about the different techniques for optimizing for search versus optimizing for answer engines, and kind of the tension that exists there. But you talked a little bit about like being like that AEO and kind of showing up as the answer even in Google, right? And the data that we're seeing is pretty crazy. That recent studies are showing that Google AI interviews or AI overviews, my mistake, are driving organic like click-through rates down really significantly across the board, sometimes 30, 40, 50, 60%, and a majority of searches end without any click. And this is something that we started talking about maybe like a year ago, this concept of zero click search. What are you seeing happening with organic traffic, and how should we be thinking about that shift?
Yes, thank you so much. Such a great question. I just shared a new research, I think that was from Datas, that is a SEMrush company, that claims that Google search, people search as much. They are not replacing search with LLMs. If they're using LLMs for different use cases, but not for searching, there's still a lot of search happening in Google. But what is disrupting the whole industry is not LLMs, is not ChatGPT, it's Google itself. That is the driving force for all that zero click marketing. And yes, we see the same thing depending on your business. Publication businesses are the most affected ones, and unfortunately I don't have the answers for them, the easy answers for them, except for you have to change your model. It's not impressions anymore, it's growing your subscriber list, it's something else, maybe coming up with some product, but it is not, there is no easy answer for publications. For other businesses, not as dramatic, because they mostly lose informational queries. For product related e-commerce, there's still a lot of clicks there. My suggestion would be always find long tail opportunities, because those are very high intent. If someone is searching what to wear tonight, they will give an article with ideas. If someone is searching, I need a black dress that is not too long, that it will fit my shoes, I don't know, anything that they are ready to buy right away. If you are able to optimize your product pages for those, you will be findable, and those will be high converting searches as well. So that is, in most cases, a very great opportunity. For other businesses, and it has always been around, for as long as I've been an SEO, cross-channel has always been my biggest, I've been a biggest advocate of that. Be in more places. Don't put all your eggs in one Google, because you need more. Google has always been very whimsy. Today you have thousands of clicks a day. Next day you have zero. It has happened to many, many businesses. For us to have learned that lesson a long time ago, grow your visibility elsewhere. And the fun part there is that if you start investing in other channels consistently, that will translate into better rankings, because you will collect all kinds of natural signals that Google loves, and that include branded searches, brand visibility, that includes backlinks that will be coming to you from elsewhere just because you're somewhere else. It will drive organic visibility as well. Almost everything you are doing, in almost all cases, visibility drives visibility. So focusing just on SEO has never been a good idea. Since huge penalties that has been happening in our industry since, I don't even remember, 2004, I guess, was the first reminder that Google can switch like this and you don't have any traffic anymore. And they reverse penalize for something that was okay 4 years ago, even confirmed okay. They will reverse penalize you for that because suddenly it's not okay anymore. So it's been an issue for many, many years. What people are seeing right now is a natural extension of answer engines. We've been talking about that for many years since featured snippets. We did see the trend that Google wanted to satisfy their users, not necessarily by them clicking somewhere. They wanted to give answers right away. The whole AI overviews concept definitely sped things up. The change has become obvious much faster than us talking about that change coming. So it's not new for sure. The remedies are different based on your unique business and business model, but cross channel has always been important because you want to develop some other channel instead of depending on just one, that is Google. Google has never been a very reliable source of business, to be honest. And while I'm an SEO, and maybe not supposed to say that, but I have always been very transparent about that if you rely on Google, you will ultimately lose, because just one channel is never enough.
This is my new favorite saying that now I'm going to take everywhere with me is don't put all your eggs in one Google. I
think I even have a slide somewhere in 2018 when talking about that at the conference. I had that slide with a funny picture of Google instead of a basket.
It's so good, but it's so true that like the algorithms are constantly changing, and we see massive dips in web traffic when there's a new critical update from Google, and some companies do fine through those transitions, and others, like you said, are sort of like retroactively penalized.
I don't really know. Maybe Amazon was the only company that weathered through all Google's changes without much damage. I don't think we did a research. I don't remember when we did a study, or maybe I read it, that there is no single website that was ranking 20 years ago that it would be still ranking today.
Yeah. It's great advice to basically be diversifying. And this goes across all marketing tactics, not just content, but making sure you have that visibility and are building credibility elsewhere, because things are constantly changing in marketing in general. We try to take a tactic of, spending about 70% of your resources on things that are known to work. And then the rest of that 30% of the time be experimenting with new channels, new approaches, new ways of optimizing, and test and see what works. Because what worked yesterday is not going to work tomorrow. And that's across any marketing strategy.
One of the biggest things that happened before ChatGPT came around was helpful content. And that update had no guidelines, had no obvious criteria. So many bloggers and publications were erased for no reason. There was no recovery route, nothing. And at that point, I went to bloggers conference, food bloggers conference in Chicago, and met a lot of people. And most of them were saying the same thing. I had my Facebook group, so I was able to quickly switch to that channel and make it more active. Or suddenly, I had a Pinterest page and it was doing okay, but when I lost my Google traffic, I was able to switch to that and make it just more active channel. So it's always the same answer, and many of them recovered. But imagine not being visible in Google for, let's say, 2 years. You have to have something else to rely on during those 2 years while you understand or whether Google changes its mind or they change the algorithm or something happens that you are able to go back to search results. Within that period of time, you rely on something, and that is something to be built while you still have Google, while you still have that traffic to kind of transfer it to something else as well.
Yeah, that's great advice, and that's going to help you too from a GEO and AEO perspective, which I want to get into next. Is like, being how do you show up in that training data, like we talked about, and these tactics are, I think, huge questions that marketers are asking today. So, maybe we can kind of split them up and talk about them one by one, but thinking about from AEO from a tactical perspective, if a marketer wants their content surfaced in those answer engines and in AI overviews and featured snippets, what does that optimization look like in practice? And how do you, I guess, balance the tactics of AEO optimization? Sorry, answer engine optimization, not the double there. ATM machines. And how do you balance those kind of approaches and best practices with SEO best practices at the same time?
So SEO comes at step 1 at this point. Your page needs to be found to be even considered as the answer. So SEO fundamentals, all those keyword researches, content creation, all of that is fundamental. Link building, everything that you've been doing before is still fundamental to step 1. When LLMs are searching, you have to be found. Without SEO, there are very few chances you will. Now, answer engine optimization is very obviously, you need to give answers as much as possible, and you need to precede them with questions. Easy food for Google, easy food for LLM agents. They see the question that someone asked, they see a quick answer right underneath. They are very likely to pull your answer. For LLMs, for feature snippet, that was also important, but for LLMs, it's more important to give factual, very well-grounded answers so they are more believable. So instead of saying something like, I think this is what's going to happen, you can say, according to my 20 years of experience, this is what's happening. And at this point, LLMs are just more likely to trust you. It's a little bit of a change from answer engine optimization when we had featured snippets. There, Google would eat any answer as long as it's like 1 or 2 sentences long, and as long as you're ranking. Here, we are dealing a little bit of making it easier for LLMs first to understand the answer, and second, think it's a useful one, and that is that we use more factual, less loud statements that are not in any way based on you don't show where you're coming from. You cite a lot of data, you cite your own experience, you cite other known people, entities in your industry outside of it. So it's a little bit of not just giving a good answer, but also making sure LLM will trust it. Yes, this is a bit of an evolution from featured snippet optimization to LLM answer optimization. But other than that, the biggest principle here is everywhere you can. For example, your product page. you can give answers there that you think your audience will be asking. And it's not just about keyword research. At this point, I usually even research Reddit to understand what people may be asking about a certain topic or a certain product. It could be talking to your customer support, just knowing actual questions people are asking and somehow addressing those on your website.
Yeah. And that, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of these things aren't necessarily new. The like putting FAQs onto blog articles or onto pages on your site that's been a tactic that's been used for SEO for a while. And so if you've already employed that approach, then that will be working for you when it comes to showing up in the answer engines as well. One of the things that we've found with specifically companies that are trying to get cited in ChatGPT, Perplexity, or the LLMs is, they are reading your content differently than the answer engines, right? So from a more of a mathematical perspective than a story or sort of like a reading comprehension perspective, which is what the search engines are looking for. So when thinking about writing blog content, there was always, you've got to have 2,000 words and you've got to be crafting a story, and the context is really critical and really important. But with LLMs, it's actually quite the opposite. Like, it's not really reading the entire thing and putting together a story and context, right? And so there's a lot of little tips and tricks from a grammatical perspective and just how you structure your sentences and paragraphs within a page, whether that's your product page or a blog article or anything that you want to show up there. There's a kind of new thinking around how to structure your sentences and paragraphs, and this concept of semantic triples and semantic completeness, and making sure that you are exactly what you described, answering a question, that you have the sort of subject object in all in one, and you're not asking Claude or ChatGPT to go back to the beginning of the page to figure out what you're talking about, right? And so if you feed it the information in that way, it's more likely to have to serve up your answer in its results.
Yeah, basically get right to the point. I think this trend started a little earlier than ChatGPT showed up. It was helpful content recovery, and Google would tell us all, do not start your article with like a poem or a personal story. If you are giving a recipe or if you're giving an instruction, go right to the steps, go right to what they need. It doesn't need to be no fluff. That was their wording, I guess. And it transitioned into ChatGPT AEO LLM optimization very naturally from that point. And for those who don't know, helpful content was 2022.
Yep.
And this next one was 2023. And at that point, make the most of the first half of your article, get right to the point, do not add any creative things, because Google wants to give their people exactly the answers as soon as they land on your page. So LLMs are very, very similar to that concept. It's just maybe they need a little bit more help there, even shorter sentences, no passive voice, no huge descriptive adjectives or metaphors or anything that you feel like including there. Get right to the answers and solutions to the underlying problems.
Yeah, for sure. It makes such a big difference. It makes it really easy for the LLMs to, when they are searching or when you're training the data, to get to exactly what your offering is, what your expertise is. And actually that's maybe a good segue. So we were talking about helpful content that released by Google a few years ago. But also there's, the kind of longstanding approach and tactic around EEAT, which for those of you who are not familiar with EEAT, it's experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness of the content. And that kind of went hand in hand with the helpful content. And basically making sure that your content is unique and useful. That's the goal of the content there, and Google rewards that helpful and unique.
Great, helpful content.
Yeah. And so you've made the case in this conversation and before that GEO is essentially EEAT. And so can you talk a little bit more about that and why brand authority becomes maybe the most important ranking factor for AI search and how we can be building that?
Sure. So for context, EEAT is not a new term. It has been around for many, many years. E as an experience was added later. Now it's EEAT. It used to be just EAT, so they were looking for expertise. Now they're also looking for experience. And it has a lot to do with becoming a brand, a knowledge hub, or an expert, or a well-known brand in your little niche. You don't have to be globally known for everything. We started talking about this concept of becoming a brand for SEO at about the same time with when featured snippet came along. At that point, another huge update Google had, that was knowledge base. For many names, when you search, you see that knowledge panel that includes everything Google knows about that brand. And at that time, we started saying, okay, we all need to become brands. So branding and brand awareness is definitely not a new concept. And I'm sorry I keep saying the same thing for every question, but I just want to make it very obvious how we've been as an industry transitioning to where we are for many, many years, because I guess a lot of panic in the world, and like SEO and marketing world, is that, oh my God, it's all new. It is not. We've been talking about the importance of becoming a brand for SEO even ever since Google introduced that knowledge graph and started showing related brands for branded searches, started pulling actual names for commercial queries. So it's been around for a while. Now, for the training data is not as well organized as Google's knowledge base. Knowledge base is all interlinked in between all the concepts and entities. Training data is very much like human mind. Like I say, it can be spontaneous. It cannot know where it's pulling information from. So for training data, and that is a huge change as well, we need to be not just known, but also very clearly defined. And here I always tell about my personal brand that is struggling being surfaced in LLMs, because I really have never had a specialty in the industry. I was, from the introduction, as we remember, I was the editor-in-chief, community manager, brand manager, founded lots of communities. I'm not clearly defined as an SEO expert in the training data because of all that footprint. I have lots of websites and for my brand name, for my previous businesses, it's all very confusing. And even though in the industry I am pretty well known, I'm not the best answer for most queries. For example, someone is asking, who are the best SEOs in the United States? At that point, LLMs, even if they know my name, they will be struggling to surface me in the answer because I'm too confusing. They cannot understand what I'm doing. And that is the problem for just about any business I have to audit for that product positioning. That is fundamental, to become very clearly defined as to what you are specializing in and for who. If you're a small business that is only making, I don't know, postcards for single people, random thought, and you are not clearly describing yourself everywhere, including your website, including your social media. If people are confused about what exactly you are doing, and they tell that on Reddit or reviews, and they will ask questions, chances are you will not be surfaced as the answer to even very closely related prompt. So the first and fundamental step for GEO is to first define yourself. Many businesses are not even there. They've been around for many years and they don't have a clear value proposition or clear product positioning. How are you different from your competitors? Where you are when you look at the whole niche of people who are doing the same or complementary things, you need to first define that very clearly yourself with your team, and then make sure that all the findable digital footprint tells the same thing, the same story of what you're doing and for who, and there the trust signals would be also important for how long those are next steps. So the first is defining yourself, then being known for that particular thing, and then also building trust. All these three components is ensure that you are strongly positioned in the training data. Again, if you use the analogy of your mind, pretty much the same thing. You can know the brand, but you will not recommend it because it's not trustworthy enough, or you've heard something bad about it. Reddit footprint is usually a huge signal for not including a brand in the answer, because training data may know about the business, but then they do some searches. Everyone is calling them a scam, and LLM will be like, okay, I will not recommend this. It's a very not good option, looks like. So all these three components are important. Yes, those are exactly EEAT. They are also exactly about being known. But before LLMs, we really took any brand awareness, whether it's very relevant or not, we would be yes. There is no bad press, right? Now the transition to LLMs, if you want to be just to be known, is not enough. You also need to be very clearly defined everywhere where they can search. Google Maps, Reddit, any online discussions, anything that you see in Google, not just on the first page for your brand name, but everywhere, can be findable and define if you are part of the answer.
That's like such great advice. And it doesn't necessarily come down to like a specific like content optimization tactic. It's bigger. And I think not being known for everything and being known for something it's just such great marketing advice. I think that like good brand positioning is very simple. It's differentiated and it's easy for people to understand. And when I say people, I also mean the robots, right? We have to make it easy for the robots to understand so that it can recommend you. And maybe I think brand is often forgotten or deprioritized because when we think about brand, a lot of people go to, pretty colors and nice fonts, and that's not what brand is. The visual identity is a part of who you are as a brand, but being able to differentiate and to own a specific area of expertise and develop credibility around why are you uniquely qualified to solve a very clear problem or answer a very clear question. If you can really focus as a whole, like you said, not just on those channels. Don't put all of your eggs in one Google. I swear I'm never going to stop saying that. Then all of a sudden, you've built a brand that is like makes it easy for ChatGPT to recommend you. It's incredible advice. I love it. I think some people out there might be feeling like, hey, that sounds like hard work, and it can be, but it's like focusing on the right areas.
And one thing that people forget about brand, well, I know why it's so difficult to invest in branding is because how do you measure that, right? It's showing ROI and selling it to your executives or your clients is not easy. But if you think about branding, it's not just being in it comes with so many other benefits. If people recognize you, they will more likely buy from you, from even ads. If it's a new brand I'm not familiar with, I would Google it. If I know the brand, I will impulse shop. And I don't think I'm alone here. And it's word of mouth marketing that comes with branding. Those recommendations, the best kinds of clients are those that come from recommendations on forums, from friends. All of that is achieved by branding. It's not just needed just for LLM visibility, even though it's now not a choice there. We have to be well positioned as brands there. But it's also, if you think about that, there are so many other benefits of the journey that you will give you so many other channels that will just create themselves if you invest in good branding.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you walked through a little bit of, your own brand, right? And how all of the press maybe creates some confusion. Can you talk about maybe a client you've worked with in your business or a brand that's showing up on the LLMs when their customers are searching? What was it like at the start? What did you do to kind of get them to show up? And what are those results that you're looking for?
That is still a good question, because I really, at this point, don't have that many answers. Unfortunately, evaluating the success of a geo strategy is tricky, to say at least. We don't have much insight into what people are doing inside their ChatGPT or whatever dashboards, what they're asking. Even the answers are in most cases so personalized that we really don't know why people are why people see recommendations of the business. So one thing that I can say is that we really start tracking branded search a lot at this point. And this is probably the only signal that we are doing anything right. We really don't know why people are searching for our brands, because they unless you survey them, you wouldn't know. But if you see a very organic, healthy growth of branded search impressions and branded search clicks, then this is the first signal you have been doing well in LLMs, because LLMs do not necessarily link to brands. In most cases, it will be just the name of the brand they would recommend. So it is tricky to actually show the success of a geo strategy. First of all, it takes a lot of time. Building a brand is not something you can do within even 6 months. Secondly, for training data, let's not forget there are many LLMs and they all operate differently. ChatGPT would update their training data once in 6 months. So you can be optimizing, but nothing is going to change inside the training data until they update it. So there are a lot of things, moving targets here, that we are still figuring out for sure. And we wait for more transparency from LLMs on actually some kind of analytics, some kind of data they could share with us that would not be private, but would still give us some clues as to how visible the brand is. I do use external LLM visibility trackers. You would know them: Peak, Profound. There are quite a few options at this point, almost too many. And I usually cross-check a few of them to look at those visibility scores. I don't 100% trust any of that data, to be honest, but at least something to judge your product process based. So this is the part that we are really all collectively as an industry figuring out. How do you correlate what you're doing with your AI visibility, where LLM visibility is mostly a mystery at this point, is not something we have good answers for, or maybe I don't know them, which I don't think really, because we have those discussions within the industry almost on a weekly basis. But this is tricky. to say, okay, we did ABC and we got these results. This is something that unfortunately may be behind in like earlier SEO years.
Mm.
We may not get that clear attribution. So zero-click marketing, how do you measure that? It's also still no attribution. Without clicks, there is no clear attribution, and we have been losing that metric for a while with fewer clicks and zero-click discovery channels. It's very hard to attribute what you're doing to the result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think like some of those visibility tools, like you talked about, we have some that we use that we really love, and I'm not sure really what the accuracy of the data is, but it helps us directionally. But there are some tools out there that are prioritizing like traffic from LLMs to your site as a point of measurement, and like what you're describing, ChatGPT isn't necessarily prioritizing like sending people a link to your site. And yes, you might get a couple of like, you might get people that are pressing and asking for that and then clicking. And so you get a couple of, sessions that way, but it's not the goal. So it goes back to like there's a lot of metrics that are available to measure in marketing in general, and only certain ones that matter. So I love the recommendation of just looking at increase in brand search volume, not necessarily clicks to your site, but see if more people are looking for you. It's a good indication that you've done a good job with brand.
Brand mention tracking, just anything you can do around
Yeah.
your brand name would indicate more discussions on Reddit. Usually they can be driven from AI answers when people see that you somewhere, then go ahead and discuss you. So there are many signs you can use to figure out if something is changing in a positive way, but no 100% attribution at this point.
Right.
And not much firsthand data. I think Bing is the only one who is giving us some insight into how LLMs are searching, but it's the only big LLM platform that has any kind of analytics.
Very interesting. All right, I haven't even really looked at Bing, so I'll have to see what they're serving up. But thank you so much for joining us, Ann. This was such a great conversation. I think it really is such a mystery for so many people, and there's a lot of great guidance that you gave today. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming on
Thank you
today.
so much for having me.
Absolutely. Please make sure you're following Ann on LinkedIn. Subscribe to her newsletter, AnnSmarty.com. Go check her out. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Marketing Demystified wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time for more conversations that help demystify the complex world of marketing.